"You can't come in here. You're black, and this space isn't for people like you." The words hit like a slap, sharp and deliberate, designed to exclude her. But Maya wasn't just any woman. She was a fighter, and those very words would soon ignite a revolution no one expected. "You're not supposed to be here." The words cut through the serene hum of the yoga studio like a knife, sharp and unrelenting. Claire's voice carried an authority that demanded attention, but it wasn't the kind anyone wanted to hear. Heads turned in unison as gasps rippled across the room. Maya froze mid-pose, her hands hovering just above the mat, unsure if she'd misheard. But no, Claire pointed directly at her, her tone dripping with disdain. "This is an advanced class," Claire continued, her lips curling into a smirk that masked thinly veiled prejudice. "Clearly, you don't belong." A heavy silence settled over the space, broken only by the faint rustle of someone pulling out their phone to record. Maya felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her, some curious, others judgmental. A nearby student muttered under her breath, "That was harsh," but quickly looked away when Claire glanced in her direction. Maya's chest tightened, her pulse pounding in her ears. She could feel the heat rising to her cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and indignation bubbling beneath the surface. Every word Claire spoke seemed laced with coded bias, disguised as concern for class level but rooted in something far deeper. Slowly, deliberately, Maya rose from her mat. Her legs trembled slightly, but her voice steadied as she found her footing. "Excuse me," she said, her tone firm despite the quiver threatening to betray her composure. Claire crossed her arms, unfazed. "I'm just saying, this isn't beginner-friendly. Maybe try one of our introductory sessions next time?" Maya clenched her fists at her sides, nails digging into her palms as she fought to keep her emotions in check. Her gaze locked onto Claire's smug expression, refusing to break eye contact even as her heart raced. "I signed up for this class," Maya shot back, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I paid my fee, and I do belong here." The room held its collective breath. No one dared to speak, though a few students shifted uncomfortably, perhaps sensing the injustice unfolding before them. With a final glare at Claire, Maya grabbed her towel and water bottle, her movements deliberate yet hurried. As she stormed toward the exit, the sound of the door slamming echoed behind her, leaving only stunned silence in her wake. Outside, rain poured down in sheets, soaking Maya within seconds. She leaned against the cold brick wall of the studio, her breath coming in shallow bursts as tears mixed with raindrops streaming down her face. The humiliation burned deep, but beneath it lay something else, a flicker of resolve. She closed her eyes, letting the storm wash over her, both literally and figuratively. Each drop seemed to carry away fragments of shame, replacing them with clarity. This wasn't about yoga anymore. It was about respect, belonging, and justice. "Not anymore," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the rain. It wasn't a question or a plea. It was a vow. Whatever happened next, she would take control. Maya scrolled through her phone late at night, her thumb pausing on an Instagram post. "Find your zen at Serenity Studios, the city's most exclusive yoga retreat," the caption read. She exhaled slowly, her eyes lingering on the serene image of a woman meditating in a sunlit studio. It had been months since she'd taken time for herself. Months of pouring every ounce of energy into launching her skincare line. A soft smile spread across her face as she thought about how much she deserved this. Self-care wasn't indulgence, it was necessity. Her fingers hovered over the screen before tapping "Book Now." For once, she would prioritize herself. Anticipation bubbled inside her as she imagined stepping into that tranquil space, leaving behind the chaos of deadlines and demands. But little did she know, the peace she sought would come with challenges far greater than she anticipated. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, Maya had learned early on that opportunities weren't handed to her. They had to be fought for. She remembered long nights hunched over textbooks, determined to excel despite the odds stacked against her. Later, during her MBA program, she juggled part-time jobs while crafting business plans late into the night, fueled by dreams of creating something meaningful. When she finally launched her skincare brand, it wasn't just a product, it was a mission. A mission to empower women of color who often felt overlooked by mainstream beauty standards. Alongside her entrepreneurial journey, she became a mentor, guiding young women navigating similar struggles. Yet, even with all her accomplishments, there were moments when doubt crept in, not because of her abilities, but because of how others perceived her. Racism and sexism whispered insidiously, telling her she didn't belong in boardrooms or high-profile circles. Despite proving them wrong repeatedly, those whispers lingered, shaping her resilience but also reminding her of the barriers she still faced. Now, standing on the brink of treating herself to a rare moment of luxury, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that some battles never truly ended. They simply shifted forms. The receptionist glanced up briefly as Maya approached the desk, her expression unreadable. "Are you sure this is the right class?" she asked, her tone laced with skepticism. Maya blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Yes, I booked the advanced session," she replied, keeping her voice steady. The receptionist nodded curtly, handing over a clipboard without another word. The exchange was brief, almost imperceptible, but it left a mark. Maya felt the sting of exclusion prickling beneath her skin, though she forced herself to brush it aside. Still, as she walked toward the studio room, she couldn't ignore the nagging sensation that something wasn't quite right. This place felt different. Not just exclusive, but exclusionary. And yet she reminded herself why she was here, to find balance, to reclaim her peace. What she didn't realize was that finding Zen might require confronting more than just stress. It might demand facing prejudice head-on. Maya raised her hand slightly, hoping to catch Claire's attention. She had a question about the alignment of her posture but hesitated, not wanting to interrupt. When Claire finally glanced her way, she simply turned toward another student instead. "Perfect form, Karen," Claire said warmly, her voice carrying an ease that felt foreign compared to her earlier dismissal of Maya. Karen beamed under the praise while Maya's stomach tightened with frustration. This wasn't the first time she'd been overlooked. It was becoming a pattern. Each ignored attempt chipped away at her confidence, leaving her feeling invisible. Still, she tried again, leaning forward slightly as if proximity might force acknowledgement, but Claire moved on without so much as a glance in her direction. The message was clear. Maya didn't matter here. Yet, beneath the sting of neglect, something else stirred. A quiet determination to push through. When Maya adjusted her pose, shifting her stance slightly to relieve tension in her lower back, Claire's sharp voice cut through the room like a blade. "Stick to the basics if you're unsure," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Maya froze, her jaw tightening as heat rushed to her cheeks. It wasn't just the remark itself, it was the implication behind it, that she didn't belong, that she wasn't capable. Around her, other students exchanged awkward glances, some frowning at the comment, others pretending not to notice. No one spoke up. The unfairness of it all weighed heavily on her chest. She knew better than most how yoga worked. She'd practiced for years, but Claire's words weren't about competence. They were about control, exclusion, and bias masked as critique. Forcing herself to breathe deeply, Maya resolved not to let the moment break her focus. Not yet, anyway. As the session progressed, Maya began noticing patterns she hadn't caught before. All non-white attendees seemed clustered toward the back corners of the room, their presence almost erased by Claire's subtle positioning. Her heart sank as realization dawned. This wasn't coincidence. It was deliberate. Every movement Claire made reinforced divisions, isolating those who didn't fit her vision of what a yogi should look like. Maya scanned the room, taking in the layout, the dynamics, the unspoken rules governing this space. Each detail painted a picture of exclusion, one that mirrored broader societal inequities. Alienation settled over her like a heavy blanket, but she refused to let it smother her spirit entirely. Something inside her shifted, anger mingling with resolve, as she vowed silently to challenge the status quo. Two women nearby whispered loudly enough for fragments of their conversation to reach Maya's ears. "I guess they let anyone in these days," one muttered, followed by a soft laugh from the other. The words hit Maya like a punch to the gut. Their casual disdain stung more than Claire's overt criticism because it came wrapped in false politeness. She lowered her gaze, pretending not to hear, though every syllable replayed in her mind. Hurt clawed at her insides, but she swallowed it down, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her pain. Instead, she straightened her spine, channeling the discomfort into fuel for resilience. What they didn't know, and what she would soon show them, was that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. "You're out of line," a bystander said, pointing their phone at Claire. "Why are you treating her like this?" Claire smirked, unfazed by the accusation. "Because it's my studio and I make the rules," she replied sharply, her tone laced with superiority. "She clearly doesn't belong here." The room seemed to shrink as silence pressed down on everyone. Some students shifted uncomfortably, while others pulled out their phones, capturing snippets of the confrontation. Maya stood frozen, her jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Her cheeks burned with humiliation, but what stung most was the realization that no one, not a single person, was stepping forward to defend her. Each word Claire spoke felt like another brick in a wall meant to shut Maya out completely. Yet beneath the surface, something inside her began to stir. By morning, the video had spread like wildfire across social media. Clips of the incident flooded platforms, accompanied by hashtags like "Justice for Maya" and "Yoga Inclusion." Comments poured in from all sides, some rallying behind Maya with messages like, "She deserves better than this blatant discrimination," while others defended Claire, saying things like, "Maybe she just wasn't prepared for an advanced class." Maya scrolled through her phone, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of reactions. For every supportive comment, there was another dismissive remark questioning her abilities or implying she'd brought the situation on herself. The mixed responses left her feeling exposed, as if her pain had been dissected and debated without her consent. Yet, amid the chaos, validation crept in too. People were talking not just about her, but about the systemic biases embedded in spaces like Serenity Studios. Still, the weight of public scrutiny pressed heavily on her shoulders, leaving her unsure of how to move forward. Back in her apartment, Maya paced restlessly, replaying the confrontation over and over in her mind. Every glance, every dismissive comment replayed on an endless loop, gnawing at her confidence. She stared blankly at her phone, half tempted to turn it off entirely but unable to stop checking for updates. Her frustration boiled into anger, at Claire, at the bystanders who stayed silent, and even at herself for letting the moment unravel the way it did. For a fleeting second she considered giving up, retreating from the fight altogether. But before the thought could take root, her phone buzzed insistently. It was Tasha, her best friend. "Hey girl, you holding up okay?" Maya hesitated, then sighed deeply. "I don't know, Tosh. It feels bigger than me now." Tasha's voice softened. "What if it didn't have to be? What if you took control instead? Did you know Serenity Studios is struggling financially?" Tasha asked casually, her tone carrying a hint of intrigue. "They're barely staying afloat." Maya blinked, caught off guard by the suggestion. "You think I should buy it?" she asked skeptically, though the idea sparked curiosity despite her doubts. "Why not?" Tasha pressed. "Turn it into something real, something inclusive, something they'll never see coming." The words hung in the air, planting a seed of possibility. Maya sat up straighter, her gaze sharpening as she considered the implications. Buying the studio wouldn't just be revenge, it would be transformation. As the thought took hold, determination flickered in her eyes, signaling the beginning of a bold new chapter. "I'm ready to make an offer," Maya said firmly, her voice steady as she leaned across the table toward her lawyer and accountant. The trio had spent hours strategizing, leveraging Maya's financial success from her skincare line to craft a proposal that couldn't be refused. When the owner of Serenity Studios heard the figure, relief washed over them. Relief tinged with desperation. "We'll take it," they replied quickly, almost too eagerly as if afraid Maya might change her mind. As she signed the final documents, pen gliding smoothly across the page, Maya felt a surge of empowerment. This wasn't just about reclaiming a space, it was about rewriting its story. With each stroke of her signature, she took back control, not just of the studio, but of her dignity. Now, the real work will begin. Claire strolled into the studio the next morning, still basking in her perceived victory. "Handled that perfectly," she muttered under her breath, smirking at the memory of Maya's humiliation. But her confidence faltered when she noticed someone unfamiliar behind the front desk. Dressed in a sharp blazer and holding a clipboard, Maya greeted her coolly. "Welcome to Serenity Studios." Claire froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her tone laced with confusion and disdain. Maya smiled faintly, savoring the moment. "I'm your new owner. Effective immediately, you're fired." Claire's jaw dropped, her face flushing with panic. "You can't do this," she spluttered, her voice rising. "Oh, I already have," Maya replied calmly, her composure unshakable. The room fell silent, save for the quiet murmurs of employees exchanging glances. For once, Claire was the one left speechless. Turning to the staff, Maya spoke with conviction. "Starting next week, we'll host free classes for underrepresented communities. This isn't just a yoga studio anymore. It's a place where everyone belongs." Her words hung in the air, resonating deeply with those who'd witnessed the exclusion firsthand. Employees exchanged nods and subtle smiles, their expressions reflecting solidarity with her mission. The contrast was stark, the elitist vibe of the old Serenity Studios now replaced by a promise of inclusivity and justice. For Maya, this was only the beginning. "You don't understand," Claire protested, her voice trembling as she scrambled for excuses. "This is my reputation on the line." Maya cut her off mid-sentence, her tone firm but measured. "Your actions spoke louder than any excuse ever could. Consider this a fresh start. For all of us." Claire opened her mouth to argue further, but no words came out. Defeated, she turned and walked away, her steps heavy with shame. As she retreated, the remaining staff exchanged satisfied glances, silently celebrating the dawn of a new era. "This is more than just a business takeover, it's a movement," a reporter announced, their voice carrying excitement as they stood outside Serenity Studios. Cameras rolled as news outlets covered Maya's bold transformation of the once exclusive yoga space into a beacon of inclusivity. Social media feeds buzzed with hashtags like Yoga for All and Justice for Maya, each post amplifying her story. Messages poured in from across the country, many sharing personal experiences of exclusion in fitness spaces. "Thank you for standing up," one comment read. "You've given us hope." What started as an act of defiance had grown into something far greater, a symbol of resilience and empowerment for marginalized communities everywhere. For Maya, it wasn't just about reclaiming her dignity, it was about creating a ripple effect that could inspire change on a larger scale. But this was only the beginning. Maya wasted no time reshaping the studio's culture. She introduced anti-racism training sessions for staff, ensuring everyone understood the importance of fostering an inclusive environment. Hiring practices were revamped to prioritize diversity, bringing in instructors who reflected the community she aimed to serve. Free classes were launched specifically for underrepresented groups, single mothers, seniors, and people of color, breaking down barriers that had long kept them excluded. Marketing campaigns shifted focus, celebrating bodies of all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds. The difference was palpable. Gone was the elitist vibe that once dominated the space, replaced by warmth and accessibility. Students walked in feeling welcomed, knowing they belonged. Maya watched as the studio transformed before her eyes, not just physically but emotionally. Every decision she made reinforced her vision to create a haven where everyone felt valued. Yet, she knew there was still work to be done, to sustain this momentum and ensure lasting impact. "Breathe in and out," Maya instructed, her voice steady yet filled with emotion as she guided a packed class through a series of poses. The room buzzed with energy, a mosaic of diverse faces united in purpose. As the session drew to a close, Maya paused, addressing the group directly. "When I first came here, I was told I didn't belong. But today, we stand together as proof that belonging isn't something someone can take away. It's something we create." Her words resonated deeply, drawing nods and murmurs of agreement from participants. "This isn't just about yoga," she continued, her voice trembling slightly but unwavering. "It's about creating spaces where everyone feels seen, valued, and empowered." The room erupted in applause, but Maya's gaze lingered on the crowd, taking in the moment. This victory wasn't hers alone. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been told they didn't fit in. And yet, even as the class ended, the journey felt far from over. As the final moments of the class unfolded, participants exchanged smiles, their shared humanity radiating through every interaction. Maya stepped back, watching quietly as the studio thrummed with life, a testament to what collective action could achieve. Then silence fell. Text appeared, stark against a black backdrop. "Change starts when we refuse to stay silent." The message lingered, simple yet profound, leaving viewers with a call to reflect on their own roles in challenging systemic inequities. It wasn't just about Maya's story. It was about the stories waiting to be told, the voices ready to rise. Hope lingered in the air, inspiring those who witnessed it to carry the torch forward. What would you do in Maya's shoes? The question lingered, bold and unflinching, inviting viewers to step into her world. Imagine facing exclusion, bias, or outright discrimination. How would they respond? Would they retreat or rise up like Maya did? Sharing perspectives mattered. Every comment, every story added to the collective conversation about dismantling systemic racism. By reflecting on their own experiences, viewers could help amplify the message of inclusivity and justice. But reflection alone wasn't enough. Action was needed too. Hit that like button if you believe in creating spaces where everyone belongs, the narrator urged, their tone purposeful yet hopeful. Subscribe for more stories that challenge injustice and inspire change. Sharing the video wasn't just an act. It was a commitment to spreading awareness, sparking dialogue and standing against exclusion wherever it existed. Each share carried Maya's story further, reaching hearts and minds ready to take action. Together, small steps could lead to monumental shifts. Together, we can create a world where everyone belongs. The words resonated deeply, underscored by uplifting music that swelled with hope. This wasn't just Maya's victory. It was a call to unite, to stand firm against inequity, and to build communities rooted in respect and empowerment. As the screen faded to black, viewers were left with a lingering sense of purpose. The journey didn't end here. It extends far beyond, into their own lives and actions. Change began now.